So here we are on Crawford Road, a scene of another tree that's been condemned in the past by Amy's contract to fell 17,500 trees, and I'm not sure the background of this tree, but just looking at it you can see that Amy's barbarists have been up hacking at it, even though they failed to fell it. It's another example of tree care people that are supposed to be professionals just vandalising trees just to do something spiteful, basically, before they leave. But I'm sure that I don't know the circumstances that it was hacked about like that, but I'm sure when it was clear that they couldn't fell the tree at the time. So I'll find out. That was the typical pattern of that sort of damage. I'll ask around about what the reasons for felling this were, but clearly there's enough space to pass, and what I can see of the tarmac, there's plenty of room to pass as well, and it seems quite flat. They're using what they call an air spade to excavate around these the roots here, which removes the soil without damaging the roots too much. But I think it's a bit of a hazard to people's eyes, so we'll probably have to move out of the way shortly. There's a turnout again this morning of STAG people, but in smaller numbers. I think the consensus was we were getting in the way a bit earlier yesterday. So we've reduced our numbers. We don't want to be intimidating. We're hoping that these guys are the solution to the problem, not the problem itself. There's a well-known face here. I don't know the history of this. Can you say? Do you know the history of this tree?
Yeah, so this tree certainly defended several times. If you look up on the branches on the roadside, it's lost a couple of significant branches through the attempts to fell, probably towards the...
Should we start that again? I'll point the mic at your face this time and edit that bit out.
So the top of Crawford Road in S8. This tree was a tree that they've had attempted fells on it a few times back in probably September, October kind of time of 2017. Defended by locals and the homeowners in terms of oversale. They did manage to get a bit off it on the roadside. On the rest of this tree, they removed every other mature tree on this road. At least 6 went. There are saplings in the road now. And this one was due for re-investigation, which is what's going on now. Initially, the engineers took a quick look at it and said, yeah, we reckon we can get the curbs back in there. That was before they stripped the curbs out and stripped off the tarmac. Interestingly, they're suggesting that a very gentle curve will allow a few inches of width between the back of the curb and the tree to prevent the curb being damaged over the next 10 years. So fingers crossed, once they air spade this out, clear all the debris out, the decision will be taken to fix and retain the tree.
And I'm pretty happy that if they can prove that there is a genuine problem, that the tree has to go, I would stand by and watch them take it.
Yeah.
Not complain, but
yeah. I mean, the homeowner that's really wanted to keep this tree said exactly the same. He said if they were to say, if there was evidence that it couldn't be retained, or the tree was unsafe, or the road couldn't be made safe, they'd have no objections. The issue is we always felt, you could just fix this tree and keep it. The Arbs have had a look at it. It's a healthy tree. However, because it's had some of the branches hacked off it, Both the ARBs supervising it have taken a look at it, and they're going to recommend a small amount of crown reduction, sort of up to about 2 metres, and a little bit of rebalancing of the tree and try and bring it back into some aesthetic shape. And they feel that with a little bit of maintenance, then the tree's good to go and is fine. It's a perfectly healthy tree.
Yeah, I'm at the moment trying to bring a compilation together of damage that these so-called tree professionals have done to these trees, like this one. And clearly, if they need to do remedial work on it, what they've done to it has damaged it.
Yeah, the Amy supervising ARBs, we had a chat with them this morning about that. They're clear that this wasn't an Amy crew, and they really don't want to get into discussions about what other arborists may or may not have done.
Yes.
Obviously, they say the intention was to fell, so any bits that were removed from the tree, it was with the intention of felling the tree. But you're right, there's a number of trees that have had significant bits removed and they're not being felled. What's interesting about this one is if it turns out it didn't need to be felled because there was a solution, and it wasn't felled attempted to be felled as a last resort, like the one on Chatsworth yesterday, then it begs the question, why was the tree, as the ARB put it here, mutilated, if it didn't need to be felled in the first place? So there's a few of those about, I think.
Yes, there's quite a collection. I've certainly got some on video with me saying, why are you doing this? You can't fell the tree. Why are you vandalising it? And the only answer I got was, well, that's your opinion. And clearly my opinion's been proved right in one case so far.
I mean, the issue's going to come up that at the end of the day it's the council's decision and Paul Billington's decision about whether any trees are retained. We're pretty confident that the Amy crew here will say that this is an indefinite repair, no reason it should be phased. But at the end of the day, it's down to the council to decide, and the council is still thinking about the costs of maintenance of its tree stock at the end of the contract, and the council may still have a view that long term it reduces the cost to the city of Sheffield if it has less mature trees. So whilst the Amy crew might be able to fix this and think it's fixed for good, there's no guarantee that Billington's still going to sign it off, and we'll have to watch out very carefully for the publication of the engineering reports and Billington's decision-making process, because I think the public will want to scrutinise that with a great deal of detail.
And Billington is the person that reversed the decision of many of the
ITP. Yep. So simply ignored the ITP advice and took the original Amy assessment. And for this tree, for other trees, those decisions were reversed. And the Amy assessment of the Chatsworth Road one yesterday was there was no visible possibility of repairing it. But they've decided that they could repair it within 10 minutes of being on site. And in total it will have taken about 3 hours work. Most of the time yesterday was standing around waiting for bits to arrive and scratching heads. But actual work, probably about 3 hours start to finish. Which is, it's crazy when you look back on how much time, 17 visits to Chatsworth Road to fell trees. And they fixed it in a few hours.
And I remember seeing video of, again, Mr. Billington saying he didn't have time to decide.
Go around and investigate every tree.
So here we are, after God knows how much manpower has been wasted, doing exactly what he said he didn't have time for.
And the result would be mature street trees, part of our asset, are being retained. I mean, if you pan round in a minute and have a look at the line of trees, this was a tree-lined street. 3 years ago, this was a tree-lined street, and as the homeowner says, all the birds in this street that used to nest and roost now all do it on that tree. And he said, whilst he used to get a bit of poo on his car every now and again, now it gets absolutely covered because every pigeon that used to live here now lives in that tree.
Yes.
But they used to live on trees on this road, and it's now empty.
So I'll just have a wander down here and have a look at some of the trees, and I'll try and find some street view footage of it as it was. Thanks, Paul. Okay, so here we are as you can see, here's a replacement tree. It looks pretty well planted, I'll give them that. A perfectly straight curb. Looks like the original curbs. I'm not sure what this was felled for. Interesting that they've planted it right next to replanted it next to a drain, which possibly isn't the best place for it to be. Here's another one. You can clearly see here that there's remnants of a route with cracks in the pavement, and that's not from this tree, that's from something else. So if this was felled for damage to the pavement, they've resurfaced the pavement and it's cracked. Which begs the question, what were their priorities? Was it damage to the pavement or something else? Looks like someone's been possibly planting some stuff in here. There's various things growing. But the ones on this side of the road seem to be wood-lined tree pits, but this one does appear to have had 3 curbs replaced, and I don't know if you can see, but there's a slight bow in the pavement. So here we have a bow in the pavement that they've done a replacement on, and they're looking at removing a tree that might cause a bow in the pavement. There's another tree. I doubt very much that this is up to spec on size. I forget what the specification was, but I think that looks too small to me. We were promised large. The council hates the use of the word saplings, and says I think it's something like large standards. But the reality of it isn't quite the same. Interesting that the curb ain't fitted very well there. It's not going to damage any tyres, but and this business about perfectly straight curb lines, I don't know if you can see down this road, but after the red car, the road curves back towards the centre of the road on the left hand side, and it's perfectly straight on the right. So the road narrows in this area here, and the curb isn't straight. Well, here's another tree that's obviously been replaced. Again, there's new curbstones in here. And again, it's a very small tree, spindly little thing. I think the residents will probably look after it and it'll survive. But there is quite a high mortality rate with trees that are replanted. Some car drivers value the pavement's parking space more than a tree, and literally park their car tyres on the trunk. I took some photographs of that very thing yesterday. I'll post them with this video. Here's another one, and again there's new curbstones in here, so I suspect it was the curb that was the issue. Although there's a centimetre of misalignment here with the curb, which is enough to condemn a tree, and again it really asks how committed they are to curb specifications and how much of it is some other reason, possibly political reasons and stubbornness on behalf of certain individuals. Now this tree here, I can practically get to within a foot of the top of it with my hand. Is that really a large standard? Broken curb, bit of a gap in the curb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 curbstones replaced. It's an old mature tree over there. You can see it's got what looks to me like a magpie's nest on a magpie's nest on a magpie's nest. Maybe it's squirrels, den or whatever they call them. But that's safe, it's in someone's garden. It's be someone that appreciates its value. This tree's a bit bigger, and it's probably twice my height, so it's about 4 metres. The curbstones are the originals on here. And that's the end of Crawford Road. And you can see that there's a large visual impact made on this road, and ecological impact. I'll try and get some Google Street views to contrast it with a couple of these pictures. So this is the air spade being used. Fortunately, I can't get close to this because I haven't got eye protection on. But basically, it's just a stream of compressed air to blow away the loose material around things. A bit like a jet washer.
where the original curb would have laid.
Just, I'm not criticising what's the discussion that's going on here, but if we just turn around and walk over here, we see a curb that is much further out, and it has nothing to do with trees. So it appears that the curb specification can be relaxed for other reasons. And those are two new curbs that have been put in. So we're just up the road from where they're looking at the curb alignment, and this is a section of the road that has been relaid both sides and a patch put in. We've just got a straight line along here. I'm going to take a photograph of it in a minute. We haven't got a tape measure, so we're using something that we can measure later, but as you can see, there's a standard. That is an inch. The knuckle to the end of my thumb is an inch, and I would guess there's about 60 millimeters deviation there. But we'll measure this, and it's larger than this device here. We'll So here we are next to another tree. This is a replacement tree, so this tree was probably replaced because of curb misalignment, and they don't appear to have
No, we'll back.
yeah, I'm too close to it
You
now.
need to go. You need to go. Yeah. To where the entrance starts.
So here we are.
There we go.
So
Yeah, there. Yeah.
So I'm on the curb line here, and as you can see,
Alright, on there.
right next to the tree,
Yep.
there's quite a deviation here. Do you have your measuring stick?
Yeah.
This is a standard tree deviation measuring device we've got here, and we've probably got about 2 inches there, maybe about 40 mil of deviation from the straight line.
Okay.
And this tree was probably replaced under the excuse that that the tree was causing the curb to be displaced and not straight. Sort of makes you wonder what the real reason was. So the situation at the moment is that the senior people have left to go to a meeting that's cropped up, and a decision needs to be made about whether they can proceed with the plan they've got or not. So they're going to come back to this tomorrow, but the options are looking like a thinner curb section, and it's just a question of how they achieve that.